Hi, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. Hi, Julian, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you, Chris?
Okay, not too bad. Happy Easter Monday. We're back to another week. So I'm just going to give a rundown of today's headlines. A lot of controversy regarding refugees at sea, migrants at sea. Obviously, Malta and Italy have now closed their ports. And there are fears of dozens of people drowned at sea, but we'll get into that soon. Also, a bit of an update on the numbers of COVID patients and recoveries that we have in Malta. We'll also speak about the record number of fines that were issued yesterday on Easter Sunday, as many people chose to go out and enjoy the sun and the good weather on Easter. But obviously, there's still a lot of enforcement of the laws regarding the lockdown or people not being in groups. We also have a political survey on the political situation. Adrian Delia losing support, or rather Robert Abela gaining more support even from PN voters, and with a sweet surprise by the Maltese police ban to elderly care homes. So, Julian, let's start with the first story, a very difficult controversy, right?
Yes, quite a difficult story to start our Monday with. So essentially, 85 people are feared dead after the refugee vessel they were aboard lost contact outside of Malta. The boat has been stranded in Maltese territorial waters ever since authorities decided to declare Malta's ports unsafe to refugees and asylum seekers. This came after sort of Italy enforced a very similar decision because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I don't know if you remember, but Malta had actually saved 66 refugees last week. But they sort of said this was going to be the last one for the time being. And now there are 4 vessels carrying around 245 people in Maltese waters.
There's also,
One quite
yeah, there's
distressing.
also. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, one quite distressing recorded conversation showed a pregnant woman with a 7-year-old child sort of begging for help. Obviously, I mean, we have to see the veracity around this video, but it was quite a shocking recording. Malta itself, on the migration issue, as always, is quite split down the middle. On one end, you've got people sort of calling for the ports to be open to all refugees and asylum seekers, including Malta's very own Archbishop, Charles Scicluna. But on the other side, you've sort of got people who are insisting that they can't be open for sort of any reason. These include people like Malta's Foreign Affairs Minister, Everest Bartel, who sort of says it's simply, unfair and unrealistic for Malta to continue burdening the responsibility for the migration crisis along with other Mediterranean countries. He does kind of have a point. Malta, Italy, Greece, Spain have often been bearing the brunt of the migration crisis, when Nordic countries rarely ever intervene to help. I'm for, and you can sort of understand with life becoming more strained and volatile. People are becoming more self-interested, countries are becoming more self-interested. So you can sort of understand the logic behind it. Unfortunately, from my end at least, I sort of think, is there a limit to human compassion? Is there a limit to how many people you should save from dying? I don't know what you think about
And
it, Chris.
yeah, and I think yesterday that argument was put forward very strongly by a young man, Chandru Kassan, a woman as well, who started a youth protest outside Castile, and are basically saying, we're going to stay here until these lives are saved. It's and at the same time you have people like Alfred Grisci, the CEO of the social welfare department in Malta, saying we should take the the NGO ships and sing them. We can't. This is like illegal. We can't have more migrants coming in. Yeah, I think it's one of these impossible situations. On the one hand, we've got our obligations and human rights, obligations to rescue life at sea, and also to provide the right to asylum. At the same time, we have this extraordinary situation in the world where we can't even travel to Gozo, we can't travel to Sicily, or we can't get on any airplanes. Like the whole state is in a state of lockdown. At the same time, if we're just looking at the COVID situation, these migrants would have arguably been put in quarantine anyway. So there is that as well. How justified is that? But yeah, that's the situation. We'll keep following it. Obviously, there are more boats out there. They are losing contact. There's a Twitter handle, Alarm Phone, I think, that is in constant contact with some of these vessels, but some have lost contact. So the reality is that there could have been many deaths at sea on Easter Sunday. On the other hand, we move on to the next story, a bit of an update on the COVID situation. So far, Malta has 378 patients. A bit of good news from this weekend is that we've had now a total of 44 recoveries, and also so that's on the positive side. On the negative side, we've had 3 deaths so far. So 3 elderly people have succumbed to COVID. I think one of the harshest realities is what's happening to those families, right, where someone does pass away.
Yes. So on Saturday, the 3rd person died of COVID-19, an 84-year-old man, and sort of his family shared quite a sad story. So essentially, when somebody dies of COVID-19, they sort of rush to burial, sort of no real funeral process. And in this case, on Saturday, the family actually couldn't even attend because they were in quarantine themselves after their father contracted the virus. So actually a very sad reality out there for people who are losing loved ones during this time.
And in fact, it's for any sort of deaths at the moment, right? Funerals aren't permitted. In fact, yesterday we had another tragic situation where a motorcyclist, a 38-year-old motorcyclist, Alex Borg Chos, known as a Chos, died on the road in Imriahel in a car accident. And again, as in there's always the shock and sadness of losing a loved one in any kind of tragedy, but to be unable to give them a proper funeral, as we're used to in previous times, is just a really, really sad reality. Yesterday as well, there was a lot of police visibility, right, on the roads and in public spaces, Julian.
Yes, there actually was, and it sort of, yielded results on a negative front. They managed to actually issue a record-breaking 104 fines yesterday for people who are, simply not following COVID-19 regulations. Very alarmingly, of those 104, 64 were speeding tickets. One driver was even clocked driving 185 kilometers per hour. So beyond following social distancing measures, which are really, really important, people are dying, so it's really important to follow it. Just because the roads are free doesn't mean it sort of becomes a sort of free reign to break the law. As Chris just mentioned, a man died yesterday. There could be more deaths, so please be safe on the road. Still observe the law, and more importantly as well, obey COVID-19 self-isolation measures.
Yeah. Yesterday as well, on the political front, there was a survey by Malta Today that showed basically the trend that we've been seeing for the past few months, right? Prime Minister Robert Abela has continued to shoot up in support. His trust rating now about 62.4%. Meanwhile, Adrian Delias is still struggling to collect even 20% of the trust rating. In fact, yesterday's survey showed him at about 17%. And I think most importantly, there seems to be a continued slight sort of shift from nationalist voters to Labour voters, at least when it comes to trust rating. So Robert Abela now enjoys the trust of a quarter of people who voted PN at the last election, right? Up to a few weeks ago, that was 22%. Now it's 25.8%. So yeah, that's what seems to be happening politically, and Adrian Delia seems not to be managing to capitalize on both the political scandals of last winter and the current situation, right? Which obviously is not a situation that is intended to score political points, but there is a need for leadership in these times, and Delia doesn't seem to be managing to change any of the numbers.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, maybe Prime Minister Robert Abela, I mean, he'll probably look at the numbers positively, but there's a lot more trying tests to come from Prime Minister Abela. We're yet to feel the economic impact of COVID-19, and he's still sort of within the honeymoon period of his prime ministership. There are still major issues that need to be addressed, including losses, political crisis, the police scandal, and as we said, issues surrounding COVID-19. To move on maybe to the last story on a bit of a positive note, Malta's police ban actually gave quite a sweet surprise to care homes around Malta. So, as I assume probably most of us know, residents in care homes have been in lockdown ever since the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, its residents are some of the most vulnerable out there for the virus. Easter is usually filled with processions on the streets, but this year it was practically a ghost town. So on Easter Sunday, Malta's police ban actually went around and carried out unusual processions to all the residents in these care homes. Quite a nice sight to remind them that they're not alone together. And I think the sort of spirit of community during these times to locals, not migrants, is actually quite nice to see.
Obviously, the police band was respecting social distancing rules, right? So they were like staying more than a meter away from each other, and yeah, I think that's one reflection from yesterday. Easter is usually, especially in Malta, a time for family get-togethers, big meals with extended families, religious, traditional and religious celebrations and get-togethers and commemorations. And yesterday, many people stuck at home, many people having maybe Zoom parties or meetings over, online, and yeah, this is the new reality that we are living with, and it must be said that we seem to be adapting to pretty quickly, and in some cases easily. Obviously, I guess it's the hardest for those who are, as you said, stuck in care homes, not being able to see their families at this time, even in their if their health is deteriorating and things like that. So just maybe our thoughts with those who are particularly lonely at this time, and those going through tough times alone. So thank you very much for being with us on another edition of Lovin Daily to start your week, and hope you have a day full of loving.